Minasan ohayo gozaimasu. Genki desu ka? Hello everyone. We're gonna look at this CNET video that's like obsessed with this like groovy new like highly processed mock meat. You know, it's so cool, guys. We're on 2.0. It's so fucking cool, man. Like, oh, who needs meat anymore? Only faggots eat meat, right? Well, I'm gonna eat some highly processed vegetable patties with chemicals in them. So yeah, it's just like, you know, people say, "Oh, you believe there's a vegan agenda? You're crazy." But honestly, after watching this shit and you see the media like constantly, over and over and over and over and over, like promote this shit, like, "Oh, Beyond Burger's amazing. You shouldn't have meat anymore. You should just eat this." Like, it feels like there's some type of agenda behind all of this. But yeah, let's just watch the video.
2.0 burger, which don't believe I've had yet. So let's see how this goes.
Cool, guys.
Unless you've been living under a rock lately, you know that Beyond Meat had one of the bright star IPOs probably of all of 2019. And there's something going on in the whole sector that is really starting to bubble up. It's a fascinating kind of a wetware technology. Even if you don't care about the business angle, you got to admit, at least someone you know says, that stuff's pretty good.
It's not good. It's really dry if you've had one.
Let's find out how they make it that way and what's next. Come on, let's go behind closed doors.
Part of that whole conspiracy that I guess is starting to become true and more true every day. It's like we're going to be these like cattle of the government. We're going to be on these plant-based, weird-ass diets, working slave jobs, having all these like materialistic things to make us feel like we're happy, but temporarily, you know, we'll have a bit of happiness, but inside we become more and more depressed and disconnected with the world.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, Beyond's made of pea protein and mung beans and brown rice. I could whip that up in my
Yeah, exactly. There's more to it than that.
kitchen at home. Probably not. This is the analytics lab at Beyond Meat's headquarters.
Honestly, if you think eating something that is produced in a fucking laboratory is good for you, then you should reconsider your life.
Let's walk through some of the stages.
If you think this is healthier than some grass-fed beef, some organic grass-fed beef, I think you're delusional.
You definitely can't do in your kitchen. So Parker, we've got a couple of patties here.
Correct.
And then we've got something that you call the mechanical mouth. What is this thing?
We colloquially call it the e-mouth. It's a
I've been called the e-mouth sometimes. So this is good.
Like
it's a texture analyzer. It's going to measure the...
They need to measure the kind of like chewiness of the meat to replicate the biting force of like a real patty. It's just weird. Why?
The force that the burger is exerting when you try to compress it,
say, "Oh, this is so hip and groovy. I like this."
or feel when you try to chew it.
All right,
Just eat a real patty. It's so much better.
the burger's going to go in here.
Correct.
All right, let's stick it in there and see how this works. Because everyone talks about, does it chew?
You know, vegans are so full of shit. I know when I was vegan, I was eating all these like mock meats now and then. I wasn't consuming high amounts, but I was having them now and then. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. But then deep inside, I knew this tasted like shit.
Right, you know? And here we go. Oh, look at that, yeah.
That's disgusting.
Oh, it's not just
Real
one.
meat does not just bounce back up like a
So it's
sponge.
actually chewing, essentially. And then you gather data from this.
If you do that to a real uncooked patty, it's going to just split open.
I'm seeing a graph right here
That's
that shows
disgusting.
every bite, it looks
Exactly.
like. Okay, that's the analytics.
Like, what's next? You're gonna cut off your balls and replace it with some robotic part, like, or so we don't have any more genders. We're gonna like fucking like get rid of everyone's genitals and put these robotic parts in so they can communicate through Bluetooth.
Lab where they make things taste good. But they also know that if something doesn't look like it's going to...
And this guy is such like he's so fake. Like he's such a fucking what's it called, the useful idiot of this whole New World Order conspiracy. He's just like, yeah, guys, get into it. Slice off your balls, eat vegetable patties.
to taste good, it kind
Yeah, we don't need white kids anymore. We can bring them in. We can import them from the Middle East, and that's gonna solve our problems. And we've got more jobs being replaced by AI, but who cares? We can.
of doesn't in your mind. That's why we have the Color Lab.
Yeah, this is disturbing.
This is the one thing in this lab.
Like here, like Sverige says, whether you love him or hate him, they're basically trying to replicate blood. Like, we've become this disconnected. We've got this. Obviously, we have a craving for flesh and blood through evolution. We've evolved consuming these things, right? And these people are replicating it in a laboratory instead of having the actual stuff. Like, it's beyond meat. It's beyond my mind.
Lab I recognize.
Yes.
Those are beets. Okay. And the beets are key to
They're
your
all
color.
like these weird, anemic, kind of looking, quote-unquote, scientists in this laboratory.
Yes, for a hamburger, you notice one important thing about a hamburger is when you cook it, it changes color. And
How about instead of wearing a stupid baseball cap, wear a hairnet, you disgusting rat.
everybody knows that, and that is how people know how to cook hamburgers.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and and when we eat also, the look of something is very important to our taste, and so we choose beet in particular because beet, of all the natural colorants, is the most heat sensitive and will in fact.
It gets even more disturbing because later in the video they say something along the lines of, we need to try and trick our brain to think that this is meat. That's why we add the coloring, the texture, and all these things to the quote unquote patty. But I mean, just stop for a second and think. Like, is that normal that we're tricking our brains to eat something? When 20 years ago, 30 years ago, would that have been normal? Tricking our brains that something is good for us? It's like, I don't know. And then apparently people who eat meat are insane. People who want to eat grass-fed organic meat, they're insane. But vegans are normal. Making artificial mock meats to quote-unquote trick your brain.
Change color as you cook.
So by using the beet colorant, I get a burger that looks like a raw burger at first and looks like a cooked burger when it's cooked.
Yes.
And not every colorant, natural colorant, would do that.
No, in fact, most if not all of them don't, and that kind of makes sense because never do people want something that will, change color. You want to be the color that.
I want Mountain Dew to always look like uranium waste.
Yes,
That should never change, right? Right.
Exactly. And
But this is different.
This is different. See the powder down here?
See powder building up right there.
Yeah.
Just that fast.
Yep, that fast.
And juice is draining out.
Yep. And so this is a small benchtop machine. So to do this,
Jesus Christ, just to make a patty. Like, do you think this is healthy? I mean, there is a study that came out a few months ago that was formed in France. This is not like a pro-vegan or pro-carnivore study or anything. There was a neutral study, and they found that the consumption of processed foods it increased your chance of stroke by 62% or something like that. You can Google this study up. So, I mean, this is as processed as you're gonna get. Like, why would you eat this?
do this for actual commercial, these machines are much, much bigger.
Sure, but we just made
It's funny, no one, like, especially BuzzFeed, the useful idiots of BuzzFeed, they never talk about the potential health risks with eating something, because everything has a positive and a negative, right? If I'm gonna consume a shit ton of fast food, I'm gonna feel like shit. But if I consume a small amount, I might feel okay. Like there's a positive and a negative to everything, but no one talks about the negative effects of Beyond Meat. Like, no one gives a shit about that. It's just like, hey, you know, it's hip, it's rad, it's cool. Slice off your balls. Join the new world order, and we're all good.
instant beet powder for coloring.
No more
Yes.
choices.
That didn't take long either.
No.
So, Julie, you've got the most fun
It's a
color
Nazi.
palette I've seen so far here at Beyond.
Do.
This is like a paint box, but I don't think you're playing around.
No. And also,
Like Frank Tofano said, these people treat their food like it's some art project. Like, they're so like disconnected, like children. Like, I'm playing around with my food, adding colors to it. Like, Dude, grow up, get a life. This is not normal.
So not with paints, only with fruits and vegetables and edible flowers and
That's what these are?
all
And preservatives and chemicals and
natural ingredients.
I would drink this.
You could.
I might add some vodka, but I would drink
It'll
this.
taste very good, but
Really?
you could.
These are from fruits, vegetables, and flowers.
notice the music. It's like, it's so hip, it's so cool. Yeah, enjoy, guys. Eat some processed food.
Flowers, you say. Okay, so what is this telling us about your process?
So what this seeks to look at is a lot of color blending. So just like you can have different varieties that give you specific colors, when you mix them together, you create very subtle hues. And all of that plays to cueing our minds that what we're seeing is meat. Now plants don't really look like hamburgers, so that's kind of my job, is to create those subtle hues, the colors.
Is that ethical? Honestly, is that ethical, tricking people into eating something? The other thing is, Sean Baker also posted on his Instagram that there was a restaurant in New Zealand that was serving Beyond Meat on its pizzas, and it was not telling its clients, and they found out about it. So, I mean, these vegans think they can get away with anything, and if someone were to serve people animal products, like at a vegan place, they would lose their shit. They'd probably get sued into oblivion.
Make it vibrant, just like an animal meat product would be.
All right, so that one's actually...
People say it looks like there's an agenda behind all of this. Like, yeah, it might sound crazy, but honestly, if you keep looking at it, if you look at how it's evolved over the past couple of years, it honestly is like there's a fucking agenda behind this.
Brown, interesting.
It's very dark, that
Yeah.
one. Gives it a really
This is
good...
a color I almost couldn't describe. I don't even know what that
The
is.
inevitable next step of like these mock meats and stuff is they're going to be implementing them into school cafeterias in America. And what's going to happen is, like, they're going to kind of make them like the only option on the menu, and kids are going to have to eat that shit. I mean, they already have like meatless Mondays in some schools in the United States. Just completely disturbing. Why are you meddling with people's diets, like what they can eat? You know, it's just...
It's orangey, but not really. That's really interesting.
Orangey, but not really, is
Yeah,
I think a
right?
good starting
A little
point.
bit of rust in there, and then this is... Oh, that's very blue. Huh.
Then you mix it all together. And now what you're gonna see here is if you hold it up to the light,
Yeah.
not only is it almost incredibly red, hopefully blood-like,
Yeah.
but as it gets thinner and as the light plays at different angles,
Right.
there's almost like an orange hue that can come out.
Yeah, it looks like blood, guys. Because they created so much, you know, from how we've evolved, that they're fooling themselves into believing that's blood. Just a new age of autism, honestly.
I see it.
And we see that a lot in
On the
animal
edge.
meat.
So you guys have done the research to say what makes red meat red to our eye,
Exactly.
and now you replicate it.
I think she looks like she's a vegan. She looks quite anemic. She's got like the brownness under her eyes and shit. Yeah.
With colors we wouldn't expect. You know, add some dark blue, add some dark brown to orange and red, but that's how you get here.
That's how you get there.
I gotta say it, that looks like a blood pipette right there. I mean, that's
That's what we're going for.
it, right? Okay, we've seen a lot of lab stations now where color and structure and chemistry and all kinds of the science are sort of abstractly investigated. Now we're gonna go into the test kitchen and see where they verify how this stuff cooks up and actually handles. This is the most conventional looking part I've seen so far at Beyond. This looks like a restaurant kitchen.
Absolutely. You know, this is one of the advantages that we have here at Beyond Meat is using our culinary kitchen to be able to see how behavior works on our plant-based burgers. We come over here and we see the behavior on our hoagie buns, so on our burger buns. We also see how the consumer is going to take our product once it goes home as well. So when it comes here to the culinary room, we want to see how that behaves in your plate and your regular home consumer and see how you cook it out as well.
And I noticed I see a bunch of condiments behind me here. I see them.
The meat is like, it's like stale, like a stick, like a fucking log. It has no flexibility in it once it's cooked.
Mustard, I see the pickles. You guys make meals here. You don't just make abstract pieces of sausage and beef.
That is correct. That is correct. We are 100% involved on how our product tastes the whole time. We want to see when it's cold, when it's hot, when it's mid-temperature. We want to see after resting for 5 or 10 minutes, how is that going to produce later on for when
Yeah, I'm going to stop here. As you can see, these people are really delusional. It's clear from evolution our brains developed eating meat. We should not be giving up on animal products, especially meat products. And I don't think these advancements in highly processed meat are going to do humans any good in the future. Secondly, the worrying aspect of this is that it may start to become compulsory for children, and they may start to, well, they're like, I say may, but it's probably going to happen. They're going to start being propagandized into believing that this is the hip, new, cool way to consume your meat. So I think, yeah, just be cautious of this. And it seems like the media is pushing this shit more and more and more and more. And they never mention the negative side effects, like the study that just came out mentioning the correlation between highly processed foods and increased risk of stroke and cancer. They could not give a shit about this. They'd all want us on these weird ass fucking grain plant-based diets, so we're more mentally ill, more anxious, more depressed. And you might say, oh, you can't get depressed from veganism. Yeah, you can. You can look at a lot of people on YouTube and a lot of people online who are talking about the experience of being vegan or being vegan in the now or in the past, and how they were severely depressed and had this high level of anxiety. And I can also relate to that as well, because I would say I had a higher rate of anxiety when I was vegan as well. So there definitely is a mental component to all of this. And I think, I mean, it's quite obvious in the sense that when people become vegan, they tend to start thinking more left wing, more progressive. So, I mean, you can believe in the whole conspiracy or not, but you should definitely consider that even if you don't believe in this conspiracy, it's definitely quite in your face now that this plant-based alternative lifestyle is being pushed more and more by the mainstream media. And does the mainstream media have their best intentions? Do they honestly have their best intentions? I mean, Vice Media receiving $3 million from George Soros. Do you honestly think the media is the good guy in all of this? Regardless of your views, you need to realize that the media has played its role in starting wars, in dividing people. If you're left-wing or right-wing, you need to understand that the media is not our friend. And the fact that they're pushing this constantly should be raising alarm bells in your head. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.